the conferences that are going on. And I know that, so the MARA conference, we're presenting several things. Yeah. Do you want to? Yep.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
So yeah, for the MARA conference, we have 4 papers in from No Crisis. One on the systematic review, which Lol is leading. She'll be presenting. One that Vinant did on the process tracing protocol, which has also me, Lol, and Bjorn has been working with him on that. Cross case study analysis, which all of us have been doing. And I had put in preliminary fieldwork results from, the governance mapping and the ETS mapping that I have put together. But as you know, for this panel, we all had to give like a near complete draft, and each of us gets a discussant. So I have sent mine, but it's nowhere near ready. So we'll see what they say. But these are the 4 that we're presenting. And I think that's on the 30th or the 2nd. I can't remember which day.
On the 1st and on the 2nd.
First and the 2nd.
Yeah,
right.
First and the 2nd.
Yeah, because we have the same thing with so that's it for the papers, 4 papers and 4 presentations.
Okay.
For the MARA conference.
That's great.
And well, we did have the SRI presentations. Have we talked about them yet? No,
not yet. He just asked about the MARA, so I just updated on MARA. I didn't move to other things yet.
Go ahead, Marian.
We had the SRI panel that we co-organized with some people from Oceans Pact, where we had intensively rewritten the abstract several times. And it ended up a panel discussion with 4 practitioners reacting to the kind of research priorities that No Crisis and Oceans Pact, the 2 conflict projects, had put. And we have now 2 or 3 of the statements 3. We have 3 of the 4 statements of the practitioners in writing. And I wanted to go over them. They're either material for the report, but I hope they're a bit more, because to actually get practitioners to say what these projects might mean, or what that's quite valuable. I must say, though, the practitioners were, at least the Brazil side, on the academic, leaning towards the academic. On Bangladesh, less so. And I'm waiting for the last statement. The one that's missing is the one I couldn't hear very well. So
the WCS one. Yeah, I'll push it. I'll push that one. It was interesting. Yeah.
So we could look for some output that looks at practitioners' priorities and conflict research, something like that. And we might have to do something in addition. But it was interesting points, I thought, and I'll share that when all the 4 statements are in writing. They're in writing, and then it's quite practically they had all written down what they were going to say. So we were listening to it and having a discussion, and then one of them sent it to me. So I thought, okay, let me ask for that from everybody immediately, and that's coming in. So that was I thought it's quite a good session, but the difficulty of getting practitioners really, I mean, there are a lot of divides, and to put them into our conference mold is not probably the ideal thing, but that happened once, and one can sort of discuss about how that went a little bit, but there must be other ways, I'm sure, of discussing priorities. Yeah, and then there was the second session that was led by Fred Saunders and Michael Gillick from Oceans Pact, which was an introduction of various GPI Oceans projects, basically. Quite interesting, and it gave me some input for the cross-case analysis paper that I've been sort of leading so far, and in that sense it was useful. I don't know what's going to come out of that. For that, I simply used your presentation and shortened it a bit on No Crisis and said a bit more. You had very, very little time there, because it was many projects.
Great. Thanks, Marian. Hi, Diego.
Hi, Diego.
Sorry,
no, that's all right. We were preoccupying ourselves updating intended conferences and presentations, etc. So that was good to catch up on what people have been doing. Yeah, so I'll give it to you, Jagger, because I have until 1:45. I don't know if other people can go the full hour, but I have to bail out at 1:45. So I'm really keen to hear
Well, that
from
sounds
you.
great. Welcome
Yeah?
to Europe.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's good to have you on the same time zone.
I know. That's the positive thing. That's for sure.
You're doing all right over there, and good to see everyone. And I mean, originally this call was, was meant to talk about the arts, and then in the last moment we asked Adina, can we postpone, because we had the conference, the Transformations Conference happening last week, so it was very busy. But Margareta did some wonderful progress in working. Margareta was here, but I think she left
Yeah,
now.
she's bailed out.
She was here.
She was here, yeah. She was waiting for you.
Present, yeah.
So what I thought is, like, you know what, maybe we should just tell you a little bit of how we're thinking and where we're starting. It's really just a starting point, and if you could apologize the very sketchy material, but at least it's a conversation starter so that we can keep developing. And I think overall what we want to do at this early stage is to in some ways do a literature review and develop sort of conversations around what is the framework that we're using to think about the arts, and how could that inform then the different cases in our collaborations that we are starting. We already had with Adina a meeting also with about an artist that might work with us in Hawaii and so on. So I think these are some initial thoughts, and maybe I'll just share my screen here if it's possible.
It should be possible.
Should be possible, right? It's a shame that Margareta is not here. Maybe something happened. What can you see? Can you see my slide, or?
Yeah.
We can see your slide, but not in presenter mode, but that's fine.
Maybe like that?
Yeah, that works.
Better. Okay, great. So, well, at the moment we call it creative practice and conflict transformation. Is very sort of, as you will notice, a lot of this it's very wide, and we will have to work with you to narrow it down. But we started to look into the role of the arts and creative practices, also ideas of myths and traditional knowledge in some of these fields that you can see here. Peace building, there's so much work around that. There's a lot of work in reconciliation, restorative justice, ocean conflicts. So ocean conflicts is the one that I put the lowest, because we haven't found much yet around it. But just to say that there's like quite strong traditions around these sort of big fields of some form of conflict, and that have looked into the role of the arts, and that's where we're starting. And so, you know, if there are other areas of these sort of macro areas that you can think of, please let us know. Some of the things that are coming up already, for example, there are some frameworks around thinking about the stages of conflicts, which is kind of interesting, and then what sort of creative practices could be used across different conflict stages. So we're saying that perhaps there is something that could come out of this project. It's like trying to relate a typology of trade-offs or conflicts in an ocean sort of setup to creative practices. That could be quite interesting for us to start thinking about. Some of these roles that we are already finding, there's a lot of work around trauma, you know, personal trauma and collective trauma, and trauma as roots of conflicts. I think that's perhaps something really interesting to discuss also with the artists that we're collaborating. This idea of transforming relationships, right? They speak about going from negative emotions to positive emotions. Or maybe I'm putting here my own words around fear and skepticism and distrust towards trust and solidarity. So how could the arts work around those transformations of relationships? There's a lot of work around supporting dialogue, understanding how, you know, these creative practices bring into the different forms of representation of these conflicts. And then what I'm kind of gathering that we will go towards is to say that maybe with this creative practice, what we want to do is tap into what I call the imaginary dimensions of conflicts. And that states to, you know, that perhaps there's a kind of a more explicit way to think about conflicts, which has to do with the cost-benefit analysis and the frames and so on. But perhaps there's a dimension that could go with with the creative practice around proverbs and myths and imagery and metaphors, And that's sort of what I kind of collectively call the imaginary dimensions of conflicts. So that's perhaps one of a big part of our ambition here. Well, these are the cases that we're looking at, and what we want to start doing is perhaps to start having a little bit more of a description more specifically about what these conflicts are, and that there's a little exercise at the end that we don't have to do it in this meeting, but we could do independently.
Diego, I
Yeah.
think that this is not up to date. The Hawaii is not wastewater reclamation, it's also fisheries.
You see,
Yeah, Bangladesh as well.
That's exactly why, and also Brazil, I think maybe it came out later. So that's the idea, that we do a little bit of a more specific update on that. But what I wanted to mention is that we already said this many times, that we will look into a whole suite of different approaches. We've been doing some review with Margareta around forum theater, walking methodologies, and kind of like what are some specific methods that have been used. And I think there's a strong interest here in drawing from sort of expertise and the knowledge from the partners that we'll be involving. And some of that could be indigenous practices, cultural heritage, and then also contemporary arts, maybe working with youth groups and so on. So I think that this kind of general framework is also thinking about not just the sort of the creative practice as articulated methods, but also like with roots within other broader cultural practices. Then some of the principles, this is a bit of a starting point, like what will be principles that we want to infuse in the work that we will be doing. Of course, on the top is like do no harm. So we really want to acknowledge that we are entering quite difficult territory and it could be quite challenging. So we want to really apply that principle of being very reflexive about any kind of intervention that we'll be doing, so that we are aware of what are the possible outcomes of that. Using a diversity of creative practice, as I said, to kind of tap into different cultural practices. Use this idea of small steps and not like start off with some big things, but do very small and tentative steps before. And instead of perhaps going, I think what I wanted to say with that sentence is that my idea here is that we don't necessarily right off the bat go towards like making conflicts explicit, because we could create polarization. We could quite quickly run into falling into one side of the conflict, which is I think inevitably in any kind of methodology we will somehow have a skewed perspective. So then what is the answer to that? And my temporary answer is to say that perhaps we don't have to focus necessarily directly on the conflict itself, but look into areas of tolerance. So how do we create tolerance in the groups that are involved, or intergroup understanding, reflexivity, and perhaps those could be places to start, to think about these interventions that we'll be doing. The strong co-creative process, we already said this as well, that I think it's important that it's not a top-down, that we've sort of designed from where we are here, but really work with the folks that are joining the project. And devise in the project as a consortium to devise this framework that will inform the collaborations then. The final thing there was that thinking about the art not only as a tool that we will sort of intervene in these contexts, but also perhaps a way for us to express or to manifest the forms in which these communities have already devised along their history and how to deal with conflicts. So perhaps the arts could be actually how we make those cultural practices of conflict resolution or mediation explicit, right? And maybe that could be a really contribution, I think, of the project as well, right? If we could have a sort of a whole, catalog of these different cultural practices that people have all around the world devised to overcome conflicts. There's some literature around risks, of course. I mean, people have been thinking about what are the problems perhaps of using creative practices within these conflict situations. Unrealistic expectations is I think that applies to all sorts of knowledge co-creation, to really be clear with those involved, what we want to achieve, and how we're going to be working. Having some form of methods that we can evaluate if the small steps that we are taking are in the right direction or not. Trying to avoid as much as possible this idea of top-down, as you said before as well, and be very sensitive to the conflicts and the dynamics of them. Issue of scale is just to say that it's not really a risk in some ways. It's just the nature of it that oftentimes these creative practices are very punctual. They work with this just a few groups, and they don't have the scale that would sort of solve conflicts. And so again, it goes back to being realistic about the expectations we have about them. Okay, great. So this is, like I said, some very early thoughts around how we are thinking about it. We created this board, which is, you can find on that URL there. And I think maybe what we could do is just share with everybody in the project. And what we want to do is to start with just these two dimensions, like who are, basically the first one is conflict. What is the conflict? Like a very short description, like 3 lines about it. And then who's involved with those? So who are the stakeholders involved in that conflict? And then what are the stage? How long that conflict is ongoing? How heated it is at the moment? Is there any sort of potential bifurcation points coming up? Change of legislations, things like that could affect the conflict. And we put many of these posts because we acknowledge that perhaps even within these macro conflicts that we are saying before, which you already told me that is not updated, there might be like smaller conflicts. So it's good for us to be as specific as possible. There might be multiple within each case study that we want to look at. If you have suggestions for creative practices, like, oh, we should do, a theater thing, we should do storytelling here because it connects to the culture in that way, then please let us know. But it's just a kind of a very initial sort of cut to try to understand more specifically what these conflicts are as we go into the literature and find, relationships to the project. This is what we have. I don't know, is there any question or any comments that comes to you at this point? And otherwise I could, share the link and we could go from there.
Diego, I put the link on the chat so people can copy that. We'll also send this by email. So do you want our homework is to go to that link and fill the sticky notes? Yeah,
maybe I could, so it's actually no crisis. No, I think your link is co-crisis. It's an interesting name though, co-crisis. I could show.
Sorry.
No, it's so good. I think it's maybe it's one of those lucky findings, Adina.
I see. Okay.
Co-crisis. Yeah, it's right here. So, or can you see my browser? Oh yeah. Not sure if you can see my browser there. No. Browser there. Okay. Here. Yeah. So here's the board, and then there are all of these, and you can zoom in and out. So if you want to focus on that, and then you're welcome to copy if there are more than 3. You're welcome to just copy and paste that. Yeah. So I think if we could share that with the whole team, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very nice way of starting to get some overview.
Yeah, just a quick. So, again, it's kind of like a brainstorming, so don't spend too much time on it. Just like all the it's things that I'm sure it's on top of your head as you've been working on these cases.
Can you elaborate what you mean by walking methodologies, like transacts, or what's a walking methodology?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different types. Margareta could also speak to it. I mean, the ones that I'm familiar with is like different groups have been using walking as a form of dialogue. So you actually, you get together and then you use the walk. And then there's this transect, of course. I mean, you can use, in anthropology, they use that a lot, right? You say you go through a patch of forest, for example, and you try to have that as a methodology to understand the kind of species there are in that forest and so on.
Yes, but that's artistic. I mean,
Yeah.
The
Okay.
transect is a kind of participatory action research type of thing, but
Yeah,
where does the
yeah.
art angle come into that?
Yeah,
And
it's a-
into the walking methodology. I know that from local political conflicts, we do that in our region, go
Yeah.
for walks and talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. I will turn to also Margareta to speak to on the ones that she found, but I just wanted to say one thing related to this, and this is one of the reasons why at the moment we are using creative practice instead of art, because we also don't want to box the work around what is art and what is not, you know, and we want to say, you know what, let's just have a component of the project where we are free to explore different languages, different ways of engaging with the senses or imagery, with stories, you know, and we will go wherever it takes us, right? And if it's a walking dialogue, we will call that creative practice, and we'll call that, you know, it's part of the work. So that's just my sort of quick response to that. But
can I jump in quickly? Yeah, furthermore, there's a thing called walking seminars, which is becoming more popular, at least in Heritage. And there, a lot of times you integrate the walking with an more artistic method. So I don't know, every mile you invite people to write a haiku about what they were thinking or around the discussions that they were having. So it can be combined with a more quote unquote artistic method. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice. That was a great sort of background to what you've been thinking, and I'm particularly, as an academic, particularly interested in the literature review that you've been looking at. It looks incredibly interesting, the work that is going on, and yeah, I was thinking about the methodology approach that we're taking in this project. That it opens up a whole new area for me, at least, and an area that's incredibly interesting, I think. So thank you for alluding to it and starting it and things like that. That's fantastic. Yeah, so I guess Diego and Margareta, the task to us now is to describe and accurately name our case studies and fill in the board for you to be able to then presumably have a discussion with each of us on how to go about it and what the logistics are and things like that. Is that what you're proposing to do?
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, we already had a conversation with Samia and Mariam on Bangladesh case, and then we'll follow up on that also in the Hawaiian case, and then we can continue on that. I mean, we can think together, you know, if it makes sense for us to focus on a couple of cases and then, you know, develop that, and then the others could like learn from that. Maybe that could be one way of doing it as well. But I think, you know, if we could, the more we sort of open up and sort of diverge, as I say, like in design method, you know, like which is kind of open up at the moment, and then we'll see how in the fall we start to like narrow into some avenues that are more concrete. So yeah, I think if I may say one thing, like more than a case description, I think it's good for us to like just try to really pin down what is the conflict, what is that like, what's that dynamic basically that we are addressing, and that I think will help us a lot. For example, speaking with the artists that are potentially collaborating with us in Hawaii, I think it would be interesting then. Okay, so how do we work from the practice that the artist already has? How do we link up to the questions that the project is? I mean, it would be great to, in terms of timing, maybe I revert the question, is there a particular timing that will be good for us to have these conversations one with the cases, or?
Look, I think from my perspective, it looks like it has to be sort of almost like a sequential information gathering exercise, but at the same time, it would be nice to have a general overview from all of the cases so that you can make sure that you're going to meet all the requirements. So I think from my perspective, it's more of a logistic thing at the moment for each of the case studies to get their heads around exactly what sort of conflict they're dealing with as well. I think that's part of where we're at the moment still with with some of the, because we're running so behind. So I'm thinking about, for instance, South Africa as well. I'm not sure, Warwick, if you've had any discussions around, for instance, your case study, how long that might take to be able to get some sort of insights on where the arts component might go. I guess it's not the Seychelles, but I'm assuming it's the Canary Islands that case study is. Is that correct? For the
So Shankar apologizes, by the way. He's once again in an aeroplane. He's now on his way back to Spain. So he's on his first flight to South Africa. Yeah, so I mean, the Canary Islands, I think that will be very quick. I think that Shankar should be able to, because it's quite clear in terms of conflicts. Social's probably not too difficult either. So now that I've got the link, I'll just link up with the co-investigators in the socials and let's, get that filled in. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. So so South Africa, and so I guess I'm the sort of, well, Leo and I are the people in Australia that are the key contacts. So maybe we'll link up, Diego and Margareta. You're both in Europe, aren't you? Yeah. So yeah, that makes it a little bit easier to connect with Australia. So just let me know a time for that, and in the meantime, I'll try to fill in those.
Brilliant.
And then you at least have a discussion with all of us already around all the case studies, which is great.
I was going to ask about all the case studies. Are we quite sure what all is at this point? I'm personally not sure about Fiji, whether it's a full case study. Then we have the possibility of Brazil, which isn't quite decided, and also about the sequential bit, whether that makes sense to go sequentially or whether, according to the capacities, of course, of Diego and Margareta, but whether it's developments that sort of run in parallel at the speed that each group is able to, not to say we do this one first and then the next one. I think it's fairly unpredictable how long things take. No?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Marion. When you said that we do have to, I guess, get everyone moving, but it's going to be all at different speeds because we're all developing at different speeds. That makes sense to me. Yeah. With respect,
at least for comparing between the case studies, I think it's important that we don't wait for one to finish and then the other one to start, because then it won't be really a comparison, because it's the second part will already have learned from the mistakes of the first or something. So I think we should, and it will also take time. So I think, we should have some commonality here. So, that's something that we need to think about, what process is going to happen in all the case studies.
Yeah. I would really like to look through the slides again. I mean, there was so much in there I wanted to think about again. And
okay, I could definitely share it. I mean, it's and I think in terms of the literature review, we should find ways to, of course, start writing these out so that we could share that. And but I was just wondering if we should actually add something to the board in terms of, I don't know when the work is happening. I'm trying to find a good way of, because you're right, maybe it could be good for us to have an awareness of like, how can we put that in a timeline, so to speak? Because if you have interactions come in, and I know Samir has been already in working a lot with the communities there, so maybe we should be thinking about what are the first ones that we could be working with, and that use that as a way to model what comes after. Maybe we could think about like, what are our prototype cases and what comes later, or something like that.
We could start filling the board based on the work that from Bangladesh we've been doing already, and I can already think of a few, and it also came out in the paper last week, so we could put ours in. Do you mean now, or just like get started?
Yeah, maybe I could add a column of time or research. I'll think about what could be a good way to put that so people understand. And then on the description, if you could put like just a couple of sentences, like explaining what these conflicts are, like, you know, they're this group of fishermen and they want this and that group wants that, just so we understand a bit of the dynamic, what is actually driving it and keeping it super helpful. And, also share points,
Okay. So do you want to I'm thinking about the next steps with this, Jago, just to get it clear in my mind. So it's do the board and then try and catch up with you and Margareta on a separate occasion for each of us, just to clarify things and to talk about what happens next. And also, I guess I'd be keen to contribute whatever I can to the lit review as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I've written a little bit on the history of painting and maritime conflict, or conflict, or
Okay.
So
You share that with us?
which is it's sitting somewhere. I've got a new computer, but I'll see if I can find the bit that I wrote. So just little bits.
The coordinator of our SRI session, somebody called Diana Borland Sentinella, I think, and she's just finished a PhD which talked about art and deliberation spaces. We wanted to look more into that. I think that would be relevant. You know her, Diego?
No, what is her name again?
Diana Borland Sentinella, I think. Diana Borland Sentinella.
She just finished her PhD. That's right. She sent us the thesis.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, we could potentially structure. It was not in my mind, but we could definitely structure a team. You know, whoever in the project wants to be part of that sort of review process and write something together. That would be wonderful. We could.
In terms of timelines, what are you thinking? Like, is it the summer? As in, I know people are going to start going off. I mean, going on leave in August. Summer holidays will start. I'm going back to the field then, so it would be good to talk to you before that. Before I go to the field in August, just to anything that would not saying we'll do anything there at the workshop at that point, but it'd be good to get better idea on things I can talk to them about what we'd want to do.
Well, from my perspective, I'm here until the 8th of July, and then I'm back in the beginning of August. So
August.
So if we could find some time before that, or early August, I guess then the beginning of July if you can. But I mean, to Ingrid's point, I think there are different ways. For example, Adina has already reached out to say, oh, we have this artist that might be able to work with us. So there's already sort of like perhaps an emerging collaboration there. And then I think what we could do is like, if, get this work that we're doing and have those kind of dialogues and see how that emerges. But perhaps there are cases where there isn't a collaboration. And then we should have a conversation about those and maybe think together, what could be creative practices that we could use and see how we can activate perhaps other networks to work with. So we could, I think that each case will be have its own method, I guess, to define.
In Fiji, we have Leo's wife's an artist, and she was in Fiji, so she'll have lots of connections. So
great.
So that's okay. Look, I'm looking at the time, and I'm happy for people to continue, but I have to get out and help my mum, which is what I'm here for.
I need to ask you one thing before you leave, but I'll let you finish first, and then I'll ask you.
No. I was just going to say that I'll be in contact with you, Jago, and Margareta about the next step for the Australian related case studies, and I'll also confirm with the other people in the room today that Fiji is still a case study, but Papua New Guinea is an option, and I actually think Papua New Guinea would be very interesting because it's a project on women that we're doing there, so women in illegal trade. So it could be a really interesting one. But yeah, we're sort of playing
And the
that by
tourist
ear a little
rates
bit.
are out. The tourist
Yeah, the
rates are
tourist
out.
rate's too politically
That was-
sensitive.
yeah.
Yeah, the Australian government doesn't want us to go there. Yeah,
Oh, I see.
basically. Or not the Australian government, but the CSIRO is just too much at stake at the moment with the Indigenous people there. Yeah.
Right.
So, which is a shame, but on the other hand, Papua New Guinea is on the other end of the strait, same fishery. So, yeah, so we'll do that. And again, my apologies for being disorganized. I will keep doing stuff for No Crisis, but I'm a little bit at a reduced rate at the moment, but hopefully somewhere in August, things will have settled down and I'll be able to work a bit more. And in the meantime, yeah, we'll catch up. And
Ingrid,
Yeah.
before you leave, would you like us to keep scheduling the monthly Zooms?
Yes, please. And I'm sorry it's sort of fallen on you to do the Zooms, Adina, but
That's okay, no worries.
Yeah, if you don't mind keeping on doing that, that'd be fantastic. And I
Thank
think
you,
it'd also,
Adina.
yeah, and also be good to report back on the different conferences and the how the different bits of or the different studies and papers were received and things like that. So that would be nice to keep doing that.
Well, how do we collect that? We have to have a central place where we can just put in our reports.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
very-
it's,
We
I
do
think
have
Google
it-
Drive.
Docs for the next report or something.
well, I think one way of doing it, first of all, is sending everything and putting on a link in our webpage under outputs or presentations.
Okay.
And
yeah.
then when
Mhm.
we end up writing the report, the progress report, it would be easy to go to the webpage and copy
Yes.
the list rather than start looking in our, at least in my memory, there's no way I can find something I did more than 2 days ago. So it's good to have that, you know,
Yes.
documented as we go.
Something
And
just
I
occurred to me.
also asked Diego to send his presentation, the PowerPoint, so we can put that. So everything, you know, if there's one place where everything we're doing is documented, that will be the easiest.
If Diego allows it.
Yeah, of course.
Ingrid, just
Yeah.
wanted to add that Margarita has, so we've not, I'm not going to bring this at this meeting, but we have started a student forum. We have a Slack space. We're all talking. And Margarita is going to also help with the website. So just need
fantastic.
you to give her access as well. Thank you, Margarita. Need to give her access as well, how you gave me. That was just, just wanted to bring that up before.
I'll
so.
just have to try and get access again because, as I said, I have a new computer and I've lost all my. Anyhow, I'll sort that out.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
I couldn't add her because I'm
no.
not admin. So
Yeah,
so,
no, I'll sort that out. I'll try and get it. But also, just something just occurred to me that Marion and I were both at a Belmont meeting last week. I think
yes.
Was it on Friday or whenever it was?
Yeah.
And all the other projects were there as well. And we are not the only ones who are experiencing late funding withheld, going like the other South African teams have got the same situation. Staggered starts, people not having started, not knowing what they're doing. And it actually made me feel quite good that we have managed to get things started, and especially sort of like with the systematic reviews and all these things. So it made me feel a lot better that we, even though we sometimes seem like progress has been very slow, that actually compared to the other Belmont funded projects, we're not doing too badly at all. And that
but it was also interesting. It was
Yeah.
interesting that it's a structural thing. It's something that all these projects that are supposed to be global are suffering from, and we can also we are talking about that in this cross-case analysis paper, because that's a structural condition that is extremely obstructive and it needs to be addressed. No.
Yeah. But that thing about the project starting at the time COVID hit and everything sort of being derailed was a ubiquitous problem for everyone.
Yeah, but it wasn't just COVID. It was
No,
that
no.
national priorities. There's a whole lot more
Yeah.
behind that in COVID.
Yeah.
The staggered funding and COVID had nothing to do with each other. That's something to do with the way global projects are funded with national priorities first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a conflation of all of the above, but yeah. So anyhow, I just wanted to report that because that was sort of a little bit reassuring, and they're very aware of the issues that we've been facing. And I have also reported this in our progress report to Belmont. So all is transparent. Okay, I better go. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm bailing out early, but yeah, I'll be in touch, and good luck at the Mara conference. I'm hoping to make it, but only if my other keynote's not at the same time. So
Take care.
okay,
Good to see you.
thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
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 Do we have anything else we wanted to discuss? Because if not, we can all leave, and then our next meeting would be, I think, the first Thursday of the month. So that would be July 1st, but we can push it a little bit because we just had one today, and we can have it tentatively on the 15th.
Yeah, because Mara conference is on the 1st as well, so we'll be, I mean, I don't know, the timing will clash. Yeah, 15 sounds good, because we'll also get feedback on our papers, and it'll be good to, reflect a little bit on next steps after the conference.
Yeah, I just wanted to know this thing about having new case studies. LOL is here and Brazil is an option for a case study. Do we have any process of deciding this? Do people just listen and agree implicitly? Is there some sort of threshold? I'm not sure about it. How do we decide? Or don't we decide and we just let whoever wants to get on with it?
Well, no, I think the decision, if this goes, for example, under the existing ideas and it fits, it makes sense. The question is funding. So will that go under your, the Germany's part of the project? So where do we get the money for that? I mean, each of us has their budget to do certain things.
Yeah, no.
If this budget is covered, then I don't see any problem.
Yeah.
Right. There's no question of getting funding from other sources other than what's within our reach, where we are proposing the case study from. That was never the idea. I was just sort of going back to the ideas we're proposing about how do you select case studies and what makes sense, and do we just add on, as Shankar says and writes, opportunistically. This is what we're doing, and I mean, we can continue doing this for lack of a better method right now, and it has its advantages. I just wanted to draw attention to that. We are doing that, and we're also criticizing it in the paper, and maybe something else has to take its place at some point, but not quite now. And there's a big plus for having more case studies in different areas doing what we're doing. So
on conflicts too. I mean,
I just wanted to raise it. Okay. So
yeah, I think it enhances the project overall, so that's fine. And because we did not have a preconceived idea of how to select case studies from the beginning, then it doesn't matter. It's not that
we did. We claimed to have. We said it's marine conflict hotspots, and there's a preliminary paper and all sorts. But I'm just putting. I just wanted to raise a discussion to make it sort of clear what we're doing, and I think it's the best thing to be doing in the situation the project is. And it also implies now, if we decide that some more people are going to take part in the team meetings. Roberta Barbosa from Brazil is a partner. She's also LOL's co-supervisor. She brings in probably 2 team members, and they are interested in learning our methods, so it increases our team. At least 2 of them speak reasonable English. The third one, we'll have to see how that works. Brazil is not top for English.
So
but
if-
Roberta's English is fine. It's good.
Marion, if we're including Brazil, which I didn't hear anybody objecting, and if there is somebody, maybe this is the time to say something, but otherwise, again, we have to write the description, send it to Samia to include in the webpage, add the list of
Mhm.
collaborators, so we have a email
Yes.
list shared by everybody.
Mhm.
In fact, one
Right.
thing that may be useful, and I don't know, Samia, if you can do that, is create like a no crisis shortcut that has all of the participants, so I don't have to type individually everybody's name, do mistakes like I did on the chat.
Yes. I have a group. Yeah, I was, when you asked me to, I was going to start, but ULab didn't allow me to do that. I just have to get IT, whatever password request, and then I can make it. But yeah, I think it's a great idea, because otherwise, yeah, wrong names, or some people get missed out, and as we're adding more, so
Yes,
I'll
this
get
thing
on,
with-
I'll do that.
Björn Eriksson.
I don't know who he is,
Oh,
but
dear. He's not here.
um,
Has he not been invited?
not Erickson. Yeah, well, I'll do
Okay.
that.
Mhm.
And yeah, and
So
I just,
that's a
yeah, wanted,
message for Roberta and colleagues, no? Yeah, the funding aspect and the belonging to the team then, and I'm not sure whether we have to somehow communicate it to our funders at some point, but I don't think they'll mind.
yeah. And
We're
Lol,
pretty
if you
much
get me
giving
right
them more work for the same amount of money. What is there to
Exactly.
complain
up.
about?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be
Yes,
complaining. So yeah, Lol, if you send me a write-up of the Brazil one as well, that'll be great, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
write
okay.
up and list
Focus
of
on
collaborators, so we can add that. Talking about that, Samia, if you go to the webpage, you can see that when you look at the collaborators, it's
Mhm.
very inhomogeneous. Some people have like 2
Yes.
pages on their CV or their
Yeah.
description, and some have 3. We need to try and do that more systematic. So, it's like 3 lines, and then there's a link if you need more information, rather than write your whole biography on the opening page of a website. It just distracts.
That's true.
Absolutely. This is the project partners, or the people like our
Team. So
our
you
teams,
can
yeah.
see some of us has a photo and 3 lines, and some of us has a
Right.
photo and 3 pages.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that
Well,
should be standardized, and you can have more information, but through a link to the web page where you have the bio of that person or something like that, because then people can't see everything. They have to
Yeah.
scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
right now, it's very Ingrid and I were talking about that last time, because when she put it together, she didn't know much about it, and now we just have to take it all out and do it again rather than trying to fix it. So, which is why it's
Oh.
great that we now have more people helping to do it. So we're gonna do. Lol, you had a question about that. You said so we had a few student forum meetings, and one of the questions you asked was having a person just to work on this. You said about social media, Lol?
That was a suggestion that was raised, during the meeting we did last Friday, and someone asked if there would be the possibility of having someone working in a voluntary basis for the media part of the project.
That would be amazing if somebody has the knowledge of social media and all the tools to tweet and all of
And
that
voluntary
stuff
time.
and the time to volunteer, then you can definitely do that. I think it definitely would not hurt. And then we'll need, the Twitter and LinkedIn and all of these symbols at the bottom of the first page, so people can look at that record.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm just yeah, go on.
And then if the
Go on.
person can have, for example, some for example, a certificate or something, that testifies from her work, of course, so that it works. It helps also for the portfolio eventually, if it's a designer person or something like that. I think that would be a great help. Yeah.
Okay. So
Do we have anybody?
somebody.
Do we have anybody who wants to volunteer these services? That would be amazing.
I mean, I know a friend who is a web designer. I can ask her. But, yeah, but maybe if we know someone, if each of us could think, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, I can't think of anybody at the moment, but it's good to think about. Yeah, somebody like that. We could put feelers out, and you know, I might look out for promising students that need that experience. And I like that idea of them getting something out of it. Like if it's a, I don't know, one of our MSJ students. I'm not saying there is one, but if there is one, media and journalism students who want to take this on, and then yeah, after that, I could put a feeler out.
Yeah, or somehow is there some channel where we could, for example, announce, you know, that we're like looking for someone or something like that?
I
Or
think
no?
internally within your universities,
Okay.
like if somebody who's doing a Master of Arts or something like that, or they might need to do a project, and they could take that upon themselves and then add that to their CV with a link to what they've done.
Yeah.
And then it's all, you know, recorded. They can even have their, you know, signature on the products if they have their own webpage or something like that. I know I worked with one of the students in one of the media groups here in UC Santa Cruz. She created a little animation video for one of my papers. So she also put that on her webpage, and it was her signature. So she got something out of it other than just helping me. I also paid for her time a little bit, but it still was kind of a win-win situation.
I've had a request for an intern today, actually, and I'm a bit of a loss of what to do with her. Because at our institute, we're only allowed to accept interns who are qualifying with their internship, and we're also not allowed to pay interns. But it looks like it might be someone interesting. I'll just forward it. Because it seems a pity to let her go. I've sort of requested what I can do, and we actually administratively don't have very many avenues for her. I'll just forward it if somebody might have an idea. She actually mentioned, she mentioned the No Crisis project. I've just forwarded it. Samir and Adina, I don't have the list.
We can send it to others. I think Lol might, because she brought that up, maybe you can have some ideas for that person.
Yeah, it seems a pity to sort of waste this. She wants to work, and I'm not allowed to accept her for free. That's exploitation. I'm not allowed to pay her. I'm only allowed to accept interns when they're qualifying, but she's already qualified. It's really, sometimes you get stuck in the administrative mud. So I forwarded it and see whether we can somehow link her elsewhere in No Crisis. It's something that needs to be done. Did you get it? I have Samir and Adina. I've quickly forwarded. Maria Esther
in our
Espinosa.
emails. Oh,
yeah. Maria Esther.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. I can follow up and see if there's something we can do through here. So, you know, we can offer her at my university the internship, but you work with her in Germany. Something like that, yeah. And I haven't actually given it a thought what she could do, but I'm sure we could figure something out. Haven't looked what, but she's interested in the project, and she has a relevant master's qualification. That's quite good, you know. Okay. Yeah. Well, Marine and Lacustrine Science and Management, Belgium. Yeah. Okay. Ecuadorian from Belgium. Yeah. So have a look further. Diego, yeah.
I just need to get going, but thanks a lot of follow up. I have the notes here on some actions, so I'll follow up with that, and then I look forward to the next gathering. Congratulations on the conference. I was there off and on again. I was so exhausted from SRI, but I did look in, and I'm going to listen to some more. Great, yeah, everything's there, so feel free. Yeah.
Good. So thank you, everybody. Our next meeting will
Thank
be
you.
July 15th. We'll keep it at this time because it seems to
Yes.
work for everybody. So that works well, at least until Ingrid is back in Australia. I'll send
Yeah.
a Zoom link for everybody. And Samia, maybe you can send me and I'll add it kind of the little notes from today.
Yeah.
Summary
sure.
from today, and then including Diego's task of our to-do.
Diego, send me that, but yes. Okay.
I have that too. I can add that.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
bye everybody. Have a
All
good
right.
week.
Yeah,
Bye.
take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.